It sucks to be a sex addict. But first, let's focus on your wife and your family. Your wife has been betrayed in the way that she never expected to be betrayed, right? She's sleeping next to a liar. Somebody who literally told her one thing and actually went out and did another. A lot of times put her into an area of risk, right? Sex is not without consequences. There's diseases, you can impregnate somebody. So to do this to your wife, you have to understand, not only did you betray her by not cherishing her and holding her body and sex sacred, but you really did. You introduced some very significant consequences to her and the family. How do you think that's going to make her feel? On top of that, she feels ugly. She feels like she's not able to satisfy you sexually. She's constantly now comparing herself to other women or your affair partners. I mean, literally, you've created hell for these women, right? And then look at the kids, right? The kids, whether they've been directly told or not, the kids are going to pick up on this. You cannot tell me that you can betray your wife in such a horrific way and that your kids are not going to pick up on it. They are absolutely going to feel it, whether they know or not. And eventually they're going to ask and they are going to find out, right? And so what's the effect does this have on them in their life, right? Their future relationships, how they view their parents, right? They now feel like they're in less safe of an environment given the fact that their dad's lying to their mom. So anyways, my point of just speaking to all that is obviously our wife and our family unit is where people are going to find most of the solace, and we can't find it there. Right? Given what we have done to them. They're just not in the mood to be compassionate and empathetic a lot of the times, right? Now, if you are getting empathy from your wife, you're lucky because it is very difficult for them to find that compassion given the size of the ugliness, right? Considering what you did was so transactional, right? So short-lived, this little stupid thing. And then look at the magnitude of the side effects. Pain. A lot of times irreversible trauma that we have caused the betrayed partners and the family unit, right? So to them, it's very hard to see past that, right? You've probably heard your wife say, I hope it was worth it. I hope that massage parlor visits were worth it. I hope that sex worker was worth it. I hope that little meaningless affair was worth it. Because look at what you just did. You just ruined something beautiful, right? You just stomped on this family and threw them in the garbage. So I like to start with that because that really is what we did and that is how it's perceived. And there's nothing crazy about any of that. We have to understand that that is a very fair way to feel given the ugliness of what we've done. But on top of all of that, here you are, compulsively addicted male, right? You've cheated multiple times. You're a liar. You've been unfaithful. Maybe you gaslit her when she had the opportunity for you to come clean. So here you are, you're in this situation and it sucks. I mean, you feel embarrassed, you feel humiliated. This is one of those problems you can't tell people. You can't go to work and tell your boss, your coworkers. Sometimes there's family friends where just for whatever the situation is, telling them is not possible, right? So now here you are struggling with this thing in isolation, right? Nobody else really being able to know. The truth is, if you did go tell them, would they be compassionate? I mean, here's the truth. Facts are, in my groups, I have countless stories of men disclosing this to friends, family friends, extended family. And frankly, it just doesn't go well a good amount of the time. I mean, it just doesn't. I'm going to speak for me personally, right? Telling my family actually was not bad. It went pretty well. Telling my friends was not bad for me. But here's the thing. When I decided to announce this publicly, when my wife and I decided to tell the public that, hey, this is a thing that happens to a good portion of the population. 1 in 4 men are doing this to their wives, right? So you're really calling attention to it. Well, when we went public with it, there were consequences. Absolutely. I felt it in my career. No doubt there are opportunities and things that I am no longer getting. There are people who now judge me and categorize me because of my past actions, right? Because I am a sex addict in recovery, right? They have some sort of idea around what that is, right? Think I'm some sort of pervert. I'm unsafe to have their kids around. I've even had clients consult for different companies and leadership organizations. I've had clients who saw our social media post and were angered. They even told me, they say, hey, my first reaction was to discredit you completely and everything that you know. All of the helpful and useful information, their company is 3 times more profitable because of my advice. But now that they found out that I'm a sex addict, all of a sudden they want to fire me. They don't want to take any of my advice anymore. How interesting is that, right? I can't struggle with something compulsively without having these massive consequences, right? Completely discrediting my intellect, discrediting my abilities, discrediting my character as a human being, right? So I'm recording this episode just to really show, again, we got to appreciate the other party's stories. We have to appreciate the narrative that's living in your wife's head, right? How horrific this is and just haunting her throughout the day, right? The narrative of your kids and how your selfish behaviors had such a massive impact on the family. How do you think that makes them feel? Do you think that makes them feel important? So we have to honor that. And then let's look at public, right? Cheaters have been constantly seen as these awful human beings who care about nothing but themselves, right? And so when you are unfaithful, that is kind of the narrative that the public has, that you cannot be trusted, that only an awful person couldn't control his sexual urges and would risk destroying his family, right? So this is how the public sees men who have engaged in infidelity and lying around their sexual lives, right? For me, when I disclosed this, I was very honest to the public. I told them, hey, this was not once. It was way more time. It was multiple times. This was not an isolated incident. This happened over and over and over and over again over the course of our relationship. So how do you think the public took that? Really not well, right? Like, hey, he didn't make one mistake. He made multiple mistakes over and over and over and over again. He must be an awful individual. So I'm sharing all this just to say, like, it just sucks. It freaking sucks. You can have an eating disorder. You can have addiction to alcohol, heroin, cocaine. You can have almost any other problem but this problem. Right? You could post on social media all of your other problems and you would be greeted with encouragement. Hey, we're so sorry you're dealing with that. Now, I'm not saying it's any easier on the family. Substance addiction can wreak havoc on families. I'm not saying that it's not damaging, but you can disclose those addictions and you'll be greeted with compassion. People will rally around you and support you. Not with this though. Sex addiction, you will be shunned. You will be judged. No question about it. People will judge you. I'm just going to warn you. I think it'll be less than you think. I think the people who really matter in your life will show up for you. At least that's been my experience. Real friends, they've been there. The general population, the general public, no, it's probably not going to happen. They are probably going to take a very judgmental stance. And depending on where you live and what you do, there could be massive career consequences. For me personally, it's cost me multiple seven figures to disclose this. It has closed a lot of doors for me from a career standpoint. Publicly saying that you've struggled with infidelity. Who wants you to run their company? Who wants you to lead their employees? Who wants you to mentor and influence their kids, their youth? They don't. It completely discredits you as a human being and it puts a stamp right on your face saying what kind of person you are. And that just sucks. It sucks because very rarely do people get stamped like that when they are struggling with other areas of compulsivity. So I want to share this last little bit to the men listening to this, just to tell you, I understand. I've been in your shoes. I am in your shoes. My wife, there's times where she looks at me in a way that she never used to look at me. And that sucks. That's not fun, right? She worries about things that she never used to worry about. That sucks. That's not fun. For the people who now know, I really enjoy leading teams. I enjoy developing company culture. And I am now no longer somebody who is credible in their eyes to do that. And that sucks, right? Here's a whole portion of something that I'm actually really, really good at. I've been divinely designed with skills to do a lot of this stuff really, really well. But now through our culture's eyes, I'm no longer a credible person to be able to do that for them. And that hurts. So many things that I could have done with my life and my career, but because of this compulsivity that I've had really since I was 10, I am now unable to do all of these things. And that hurts. That's not fun. Right? So again, that makes you feel disposable. You feel discarded, right? And then what's that do for your compulsivity? Does that kind of drive you back into your compulsive behaviors? How harmful is that in recovery? Sharing all this to just really empathize, like it just sucks. Here you are trying to change your brain, trying to redeem yourself and undo a lot of these things. And on top of that, you're getting kicked while you're down. You're getting called names. You're getting looked at in ways. People are making assumptions about who you are as a person. They look at your behaviors as a expression of your character, who you are as a human. They completely don't even assume the fact that, like me, I had an experience as a 4-year-old, a sexual experience that I should have never had. There's so much. There's sex abuse. There's molestations. There are religious organizations that say things to kids they should not say about their sexuality. We completely ignore what happened to this person. And then not to mention the fact that when guys are in middle school, high school, college, there's insane amounts of objectification conversation where men are essentially collecting women sexually as trophies. The impact that has on the brain, the media, TV advertising, this hypersexual culture, right? We don't consider any of that driving the choice to have an increased sexual desire that would lead to some infidelity. We don't ever consider what's going on to make these men make these decisions, right? Instead, we judge their character. We call them a name, and this person now becomes blacklisted for being a trustworthy individual. Kind of interesting to me because if we look at any other compulsion and addiction, it's very rare that they're being upfront and honest about their behavior. They're lying and concealing it from their family and from the public as well. But again, because we have chosen something in the sexual genre, the way our society sees it, it comes with an extra layer to it, and a layer that I think certainly makes recovery a whole lot harder And for guys who already have trust issues, who already love avoidant, who already prefer to isolate and conceal themselves and keep everybody at arm's length, it's really challenging when we're trying to trust, where we're trying to be open, vulnerable, we're trying to let people into our lives, when we finally are upfront and honest about what we have done, and then we're treated that way and looked at that way and stamped with that label. For some people, they lose their jobs, they lose their careers because of what they have done. And it just sucks. It definitely makes you feel like a second-class citizen when you are unable to be trusted by people and you're labeled with something that kind of makes you damaged goods. It's a really feeling. And this is why peer support is so critical in addiction recovery, more so in sex addiction than any other area of addiction, because of the social stigma. I think men underestimate the effect that this is having on your psyche. I mean, literally, to be treated like a second-class citizen, because it's a real thing. I mean, it happens. It happens in your own home, from your wife, maybe even your kids, right? It can happen out the street in terms of how you know people will look at you. So you've got to find a group of men who you consider like normal dudes, like cool, good members of society, like totally normal people, just like everybody else who's struggling with this problem, right? Peer support, that's what it does. It helps you not feel like a freak. It helps you understand that, hey, this shit happened to us. You know, yes, we've done horrible things, but in many ways, these guys are really victims of social shaping, of early abuse, of the religious abuse or poor parenting strategies, right? So it happened to this way. And now you have engaged in compulsive sexual behavior, right? So you're just a normal person caught up in the same nonsense that everybody else gets caught up in. The challenge is you've chosen sexual compulsivity. And unfortunately, because of the society we live in, there's consequences to that. So it's critical that you find a group of men who you really connect with, who you relate with, make you feel normal and support you. Otherwise, I don't know if you're going to be able to achieve a recovery. Seriously. I mean, you need to feel cared for. You need to feel normal. You need to feel like there's a way out of this and that you're no different than anybody else. You just happen to engage in behaviors that society shames potentially more than others. So if you have not found a deeply connected tribe of men to do recovery with, you need to. I truly don't think you can recover without it.